Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRI. AFRI is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. I have the pleasure to welcome you, Karin, to Urbanistica podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having us, or me, at this point.
How are you doing?
Just fine, thanks. It's, you blink and the week passes, but it's so much fun. So it's great.
Nice. So where are you now? In which city?
We're based in Lund, and that's also where I am at the moment in our prototype production facility.
You're our storyteller, Karin. How would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
So I quite often say that I'm in the business of borderline crazy and genius, and working at the company Elonroad, and we are what we're called electricity on road. Sometimes we do very complicated things, but it's quite easy to picture for yourself if you ever played with like a car racing track when you were little, those electric ones, you had a thing in your hand and you pressed it and the car was running around. And we're almost doing that, but a real size or real life project to be able to power any kind of vehicle while they are driving.
That's super, super interesting. And I would love to talk more about this with you. Tell me more about your background, where you grew up, your education, what did you work with?
Yeah, so you could say that I've made a switch in careers lately. So I joined this team 2 years ago, but I'm a trained lawyer. I used to work as a lawyer, so I did go to law school here in Lund. Not 100 years ago, but almost. And was actually working at different law firms for the major part of my career, and I choose to go to law school because that was the education that I was accepted into, because I was not I didn't have math from my high school degree, so I was looking for programs at university which didn't require any math skills, so I ended up at law school with no intention of being lawyer, just wanted to know.
But you actually practice it
yes,
as well, like so, you became an official, a professional.
Yes, so I became what in Sweden we call advocat, so working for law firm. So I would say that my career and my life has been, it's plot twists. I mean, you think something and then you end up doing something else, and slipping on a banana peel into a new direction. So it's.
How did you change career, and why?
Well, I always, I didn't have an inner drive to become like a lawyer. It was fun, and it was more of a coincidence, and I enjoyed it. But what I think I really enjoyed was people and getting things done, and also doing business. I love getting business done, and I had colleagues that are more focused on the legal skills and legal writing and solving the legal problem, and I saw the legal more like a toolbox of getting things done. So eventually I did some further education, so I did an executive MBA at the Stockholm School of Economics a few years ago to get additional tools in my toolbox. And then I focused, if I was a business lawyer, I thought that business was more fun than the lawyer part. So I turned into business.
How was the story, the background that you became part of Elonroad?
Yes, so at that time I was working for a Swedish VC firm called Almi Invest Green Tech. So basically having the most fun job you could imagine, just scouting for startups with the purpose of reducing CO2 emissions. So that was our thesis for the fund. And so I was meeting entrepreneurs from all over Sweden, because we only invested in Swedish companies, but new materials, energy efficiency, yeah, it's a lot of different fields, and I really enjoyed it. But I could also feel like if you're an investor, and it's a bit like being the teenage parent, you're stamped for order and follow up, and you know, and the entrepreneurs, they were just crazy and filled with ideas, and I wanted to be on that side as well. So when the founder Dan came to me for looking for funding, I thought that this company was so cool and I could really see the potential. And after getting to know each other for, they didn't get any money at that time, so instead you could say I invested myself first. So
Yeah. But tell me, like, was it a big move for you when you change career and change like field? Were you like a kind of afraid because like you're not in your comfort zone anymore?
absolutely, and it was also quite a big step going from a very secure job with a regular income, and it's a good solid job, to take on a startup where the financial projections are a bit uncertain and you're not sure that the technology will work. Will we be able to attract customers? Can we get market attraction? Can we get people to work from us? What happens if we fail? There were a lot of uncertainties, but I just almost felt this physical sense that if I didn't try this, I would regret myself forever. And I needed to try. So I took a big, and I talked to some people, and some said, "Oh, you're stupid. You shouldn't do this. You have the best job." And others said, "Just go for it." And eventually, I just had to listen to my inner self or my gut feeling, and I went for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So tell me about the background of Elonroad. How did it start? Like
So
the
that's
story of
also
it.
a quite funny story. And it was founded by Dan Cetrius, who's from Lund, and he has a background as a film director. So he was working for Swedish television.
Why everyone is changing jobs
I know.
and careers now?
It is. I quite often say that we're the home for secondary careers. So if you have a and he if you're grown up in Sweden, you know that we have julkalendern, adventskalendern on Swedish television, and one of the most popular is Mysteriet på Greveholm, which is a very famous one. And actually he has written it, directed it, and produced it. So it's
So for the international listeners, this is something super big on TV.
It's super big, and it's every Christmas. You have like small episodes every day leading up to a big sort of solving of a mystery on Christmas Eve. So it's a very big thing, and this is one of the most popular since like 50 years. And he wrote it and also produced and directed it. But he wanted to have an EV quite early, 10 years ago, and thought they were too expensive, and mainly the cost is related to the batteries. And also, if you live in a
wait, Karin, what is EV?
electrical
Can you explain
vehicle?
to us? Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. So he wanted to buy an electrical vehicle, but thought they, as I said, too expensive, and it is so that more than 50% of electrical vehicle cost is related to the battery, because it's really expensive to produce. And also, as you may know, there are some natural resources and minerals that are scarce and comes from conflict zones potentially, and so it has been debatable if electrical vehicles are as sustainable as they claim to be. And also you have the problem of range anxiety. So I mean, you need to charge them, and you can't drive so, especially not for 10 years ago. And if you live in a flat, it's quite hard was hard to
It's
find.
kind of impossible.
Yes,
Yeah. I think it's still, by the way, to be honest,
it
it's
is.
still
It's
hard.
better, but it's
Yeah.
still hard. So he got this idea because he used to play a lot with those kart tracks racing when he was small, and he had small kids. And he just noted that there was like changing color on the highway between the tires. You know, when you drive on a highway, it will have different colors because it will wear and tear differently from the tires. And in the middle, you could see like, and his brain was just, what if there was something there that I could charge my EV electrical vehicle on while I was driving? And then he went home and built the first prototype in Lego to to verify his assumption. And then since he's based in Lund, and Lund has a really good university and a technical university as well, he did find himself a professor that had been writing articles and talking about this. And they started to collaborate, and the rest is history. So for several years, it was just them working on this as a, like almost like a student university project, and then eventually got some funding, and then won actually a tender for the Swedish Transport Administration to build 1 kilometer of electrical road. So we've done that here in Lund to power a bus, public transportation bus, for the purpose of demonstrating how it could work. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about you, like explaining us the details. But before we go, so which year did it start? Put
So the
us like in a
company, I
time
mean, the
frame.
idea was probably almost 10 years ago, I would say. And our company was founded in 2014. And then we were awarded the public tender in 2019. And then we have been installing and demonstrating the technology for, I would say 2 years now.
Wow. So you just won just before the COVID, right?
Yes.
Like 2019.
Yeah. I started actually today on the 15th of February. It's my 2-year anniversary at the firm.
Congratulations, Karin.
I just
That's
started.
why you're extra.
Yeah.
That's why you're extra happy. I thought it's because you're recording the podcast. You're so happy, but
I'm
no.
always happy. Most of the time, I'm happy.
That's good. That's good. So how big is the team?
So I would say that we're between 15 and 20 full-time employees now, and probably almost 10, I would say, extras and master thesis students and extra people around. So somewhere between 20 and 30 is hanging out in our factory.
Yeah. And Karin, tell me like about how to say the vision or the mission of Elonroad, and then take me to the details, like about the project that you work with.
Okay,
in
absolutely.
Lund.
So the vision is, of course, that we will be able to provide infinite range, and you will never have to stop or think about refueling or recharging. It's time to talk about range happiness. So that's the vision. But the purpose is to do that and also enable a more sustainable transportation sector, because if we can, in Sweden at least, and I think on a global level it's a bit low, but say on a global level, road transportation stands for 25% of the CO2 emissions. So it's 1/4. So it's a lot. And even if during COVID we haven't been traveling so much for vacation or business purposes, but you have had a lot of goods transportation because we do order things. We've been sitting at home ordering online, and we order groceries, and we just had a different shopping behavior, which increases the need for transportation. So we don't really see any trends of reducing those levels. So we need to do it more sustainably, and going from the combustion engine and fossil fuels into electrical vehicles would be one thing. But what is really restricting or hindering the expansion is the charging infrastructure. So we want to be able to facilitate or enable electrification on a larger scale, and hopefully we could contribute that you can have smaller batteries, because that would be a real environmental gain.
Yeah. So tell me about the project. Explain to us how does it look like?
Yes. So our solution is really that we have produced aluminium rails that you could. The shortest segment is 10 meters, and so you can put them together. It's very, very scalable. They're about 4 centimeters high and 30 centimeters wide. And you can either put these rails on top of the asphalt, or you can drill it and you can embed it. So we have 2 versions. And those 10-meter segments are divided into shorter segments electronically. So we have 1 meter plus, 1 meter minus, 1 meter plus after each other. And when a vehicle comes driving over it, it will send an encrypted radio signal that unlocks power distribution in the short segments of only 1 meter at a time. And that meter will be exactly underneath the vehicle, regardless if you stand still or you drive 120 kilometers an hour. So I would say that that is our core, to be able to switch on short segments of very high energy transfer segments in high speeds. And I would say that we need a physical contact between the vehicle and the rail. And if you charge your cell phone and you have those like induction plates or wireless, it will take longer time than if you put in the cord. So contact you have higher energy density, so it will go quicker, and we will be able to transfer high effects with as little energy losses as possible, because we're all about making resource efficiency. So I think that we have an efficiency of like 97, 98%. So almost no energy losses on the way. And for an individual vehicle, if it's a small vehicle, we can transfer 150 kilowatts, and like a large truck or a bus, it's between 300 and 400 kilowatts that we can transfer to each individual vehicle. And from the roadside, since we have a lot of power electronics in our rails, so we will know, and we have this encrypted radio signal, we will know exactly the vehicle identity and the amount of energy it has consumed. So it will be easy to send a bill afterwards.
Okay, so yeah, there are so many different points in this story. First of all, like the lines, what do you call it? Electrical lines?
Rails, you could say, or
rails,
tracks. It's
tracks, yeah. How do you connect them to electricity? Like,
so about every kilometer, we need to connect to the grid, and then we have power transfer within the rails.
Yeah, and then the vehicles pass.
Yep.
Over the rail.
Yep.
But does it need to have a physical connection, like somehow
so then
attached?
There's a mechanical device underneath. We call it a pickup, inspired by the vinyl gramophone when you picked up music, and we now pick up energy. And then with sliding contacts, so at least 3 sliding contacts will go down, so you always have a connection with plus and 1 with minus. And then you will transfer, and then for the dynamic charging, we need an onboard charger, because we transfer about 650 volt DC, and then we need to convert that into the right tension or power for the battery.
Yeah, voltage. Yeah. So, and then
haven't I learned a lot of engineering talk for being a lawyer?
This is what I wanted to comment, but I left it to the end. I'd be like, okay, but you wanted to escape from math and physics.
No.
And now you're telling me like so many kilowatt and effect, and you know. Tell me. So now I'm driving my EV,
yes,
as you say.
Yes.
Okay, on the rail. Then you send me the bill home.
Yes.
You tell me this is how much electricity you consumed.
Yes, so all the parts of the business model is not solved yet. So I think that if you were driving in Sweden, and the Swedish Transport Administration are now planning to build the first permanent electrical road, and are planning more. So I think here it will be the Transport Administration that will own and install the electrical road. And then I'm not sure what the English version is, Transportstyrelsen, but it's another.
It's like traffic agency.
Yeah, traffic agency that will do the charging for it. Like they have tolls in cities, and they will take care of the charging. So they will have some kind of course, that's why you need to measure and identify the user to be able to pay for like a user fee.
Yeah. So what are the elements you need to make this happen? I guess you need first, like, apart from the bureaucracy and different actors needs to agree about these things, but you need a road, you need you produce the rail, the electrical, and how about the car and the pickup?
Yes, so that's I mean, of course, you have the cost for the rail and the grid, but I would say the largest investment is really to have enough electrical vehicles to justify that you have this kind of. So, of course, it's catch-22 because the vehicles will not come there unless you have a good charging infrastructure. But the charging infrastructure may not be so profitable unless you have a lot of vehicles. So it is not an easy, what do you call it? So it's no easy answer to that. But when we talk to a lot of logistic companies or other stakeholders, they are interested because when you talk about, all they want to do is transport their goods. I mean, it's there. But if you're now turning into electrification, they have to learn so much about other things, about energy supply, energy storage, energy, which is not related really to transport of goods. So it's quite complex. It's not just to change from a gasoline truck to a battery electric truck. It's the whole infrastructure needs to be in place. But what they also want to have is high productivity and utilization of those vehicles. And for us, like our cars, if you're a personal private person, our cars stand still like 97% of the time. I mean, there's plenty of time to charge them while they stand still. But if you have a commercial vehicle, of course, you want to deploy them as much as possible. And then to reduce really extra time standing still charging or taking the opportunity to charge while you are on and offloading is really something that I think the industry and business is looking into. So of course, it is a hurdle and a high market barrier to introduce a technology that also needs not only to be installed in the ground, but it needs also to have some vehicle adoption.
True. So, but like the vehicles, do they need to have a specific, let's say, programmed somehow? I mean, can I drive my, how to say, like a specific brand of vehicle, electrical vehicle, and it will work?
Yes. So our point of view has been always to be able to be very inclusive. So we want to be able to retrofit any kind of electrical vehicle that exists today to be able to use the road. So it's not for any vehicles going forward. But of course, it's a matter of cost and legal implications, and so it won't happen overnight. And therefore, of course, looking into like the specific roads, or we are also talking to use the same technology in ports and mines. And then you have a higher decision power of the geographical area and also the fleet, and then you can introduce it. So all technology might not be for everyone at all points. So if you start having electrical roads for long-haul trucks who adopt, then we can add on users as it's there. So it's possible.
Yeah. And tell me, like, what you mentioned that it doesn't matter, like, the speed that I'm driving with, right? It doesn't matter if I am like still or speeding up, my vehicle will get electricity. Yeah. And how about when I turn like left or right, and like I will be out?
So if you change lanes,
is my car yeah, exactly, is my car connected all the time, or
no? So it will be automatic. So it will sense when you're over the rail, and it will sort of attach itself. And just when you switch lane or you're turning left and right, it will just automatically go up. So then you will not be attached to the rail. So it's supposed to be, or we have designed it to be very flexible. And also, we don't think, I mean, our system at least is not designed to have electrical roads on 100% of stretch. It's perhaps 50% or less, because we use the energy both for the drive line and charging the battery. So you drive on the electrical road, part of it, and then it ends, and then you can go on your battery and use the battery, and then you will come back on an electrical road, and then you can charge and use it for the drive line. So it's really to extend the range, but not requiring so heavy batteries.
Yeah. So it's like a kind of hybrid, right? Like between the battery and the directly charging.
It's not like, so electrical roads are not. A lot of people think that, oh, then you are against batteries, and I always say no, the opposite. We love batteries. We need something to charge. So
but you need but not the same volume of the batteries.
No, exactly.
Okay. I would love to hear more about like your collaboration with H22, and after that we're gonna talk about more how like your idea and cities. For me, it's interesting as an urban planner as well. So tell me like why it's so important that you collaborate with H22 Expo in Helsingborg city.
No, but as I said in the beginning, we are sort of borderline genius and crazy, and you need cities or stakeholders that are have the same ambitions to be genius and crazy, because it is a new thing, and you need to adopt, and it's both changing technology but also changing behavior. So we were really happy when we started talking to H22 that they saw our vision, and we can support their vision of having more sustainable cities. So I think that's a perfect collab. And so now we're doing just stationary charging in the port of Helsingborg. So sometimes it's easier to start with smaller projects, and you can get used to it, and people can get acceptance, and then work from there. So really happy to have, and hopefully it's not official yet, but hopefully we'll have some more project in Helsingborg during H22. So
hopefully, how was the process with the municipality, like with the H22 team? Did they understand your idea, and they'd be like, oh wow, this is so cool?
Yeah. So sometimes it's a lot of people think it's a cool thing, but then for us it's also important to convert it into real projects, because it's easy that you just say, oh, it's really cool, but it's so complex to get all the stakeholders. You need the vehicle side, and you need the energy supply, and it's just so complex that you don't really have the energy or grit to go through it. But in H22, I think it's been a fantastic opportunity for different stakeholders to come to the table and see what can we show and what can we do to demonstrate this change. So there you have both the city, the municipality, a big infrastructure player like the port, and then also the local utility company. Because as I said previously, when you go into electrifications, it's suddenly new stakeholders that need to interact and get to know each other, compared to just buying a traditional vehicle. And I think H22 is a great platform to enable that. And for us in cities, we think that if we can show that you can still have a high degree of comfort and accessibility, but you don't take more space in a city for the benefit of vehicles, for the detriment of people. If we can use roads and streets that are already there, instead of building new places or taking more for vehicles, I think that would be a great solution. And for us, of course, as a vision for cities and urban environments, to have our rails to support bus lines, but they can also support taxis and last mile delivery, all those, as I said, that needs high uptime, where standing still is really losing money.
Yeah. So tell me, what are we going to see when we visit the H22 Expo this summer? What will you show us?
So we will have our solution in the port, and I'm not really sure to what extent the port will be accessible and available to be able to demonstrate, but we will be part of the exhibition that the port has in Oceanhamnen, I think it is, where we have our stands or containers with information, and we will be able to demonstrate and have a rail there that you can look at, and we will show different things, how it works, and hopefully I will get some proper engineers to do some experiments and also get the kids involved to see, I mean, what could the future look like? Because that's also something, I mean, I remember when I grew up, the standard was to be able to, when you had to phone someone, you did it through like your phone, and you had a cord to the wall, and you had to be physically located where the phone was. And when I say that to my kids now, they just look at me as I was a strange dinosaur. and I mean, for them, the freedom of being, I mean, they don't talk on the phone. I mean, the only way I can get hold of my kids is either through Snapchat or Swish.
Yeah.
That's the two platforms I communicate with my kids. And but I hope that, I mean, when they have kids, they were like, oh, when I was kid, we had to go and go somewhere to refill our cars with a cord, and their kids would go, oh, couldn't you just be totally free and go wherever you want, and get the kids' perspective of how could a future look like, and what would they want from a future. So I hope we will get some activities that also involves families and kids and other interested people who want to be part of this. I would say it's a paradigm shift of going from the traditional way of transporting to a new way.
Will you be there, Karin?
I will be there, not the entire 30 days all the times, but I will definitely be there.
Awesome. So we if we visit, let's say your exhibition, we will see the car and the rail and see how does it work and so on, right?
Yes, you will.
That's awesome. So I'm looking forward to see this, because I'm also going to the Expo H22. So hopefully see you there.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I will now take you to the urban planning arena.
Yep.
And I guess you heard this a lot, that now you're introducing a new infrastructure, a system, a completely new system. You're destroying our roads and so on. So like, what is your reflection about this? Like, now you're introducing a new infrastructure and it's a big investment. You're changing the game.
Yeah.
What is your reflection about this?
I mean, that's the crazy part, I guess, to be a small company to try to do something like that. And it is a challenge to question the current solution. But I think that if you look at I had this discussion with a port, and they had like 120 vehicles there. And he said, of course, we could charge them with the charging points, but then they need to charge every break. So they have lunch breaks, and then they have 1 hour between the shifts, and they had 2 shifts. Imagine the power supply you would need for 120 vehicles charging full in 1 hour. And that's a closed loop, that's a closed area. But if you think of it as a city, and you extract that to have, like, if you look at a city and all the vehicles that are operating there, if they would charge at certain hours, all of them, that would require a lot of effect at certain hours and points. So how can we? It's a whole new way of thinking of how can we distribute energy more evenly during the hours when 100% are to be electrified. And that problem hasn't really started yet, because, I mean, was it a few percent that is turning into electric? But then these cities, they have ambitions that, no, it's going to be a fossil-free zone by 2025 or 2030. Yes, but how will you enable that?
But I mean, like, now you're introducing a new element to the to the existing infrastructure, roads.
Yes.
And like this needs to be a kind of, you need to rebuild the roads, right?
No, we can retrofit them, so you don't really need to rebuild them, and that's the, I would say, beauty of this. I mean, either if you have low speeds, you could actually have our solution that you just put on top of the asphalt, or I mean, if we submerge it, you only drill 5 centimeters wide, which is not the top layer of the asphalt, and it's 30 centimeters wide. So you don't really, and then you can take it up. I mean, what you re-asphalt every 5th or 7th year anyway, so it's not like you don't have to rebuild the entire road, and then you need to connect to the grid about every kilometer. So of course it will be an interference, but you could also see that you're turning streets into charging assets. You could actually make money off your street.
It's like a rethinking streets. But I'm thinking now, because I used to play football in the streets.
Yeah.
And how is it when, let's say, if I'm walking with my dog, if I'm playing a football, if I'm passing by, does it like, should I be careful from this, or?
No, I mean, that's why I would say more than 90% of our development has been related to safety, and that is of highest importance to us. But that's why we have this encrypted radio signal underneath that unlocks the road. When there's no vehicle, it will be grounded at all time. It will be no power supply, so you can safely walk over it, even barefoot, I would say, without being afraid.
What are the biggest challenges that you're facing now, like to introduce this to cities?
It is the fact that it's so many layers of decision and different stakeholders. So if you take a city like Lund, where we're located, and they want now to buy electrical buses, but it's not them who decides about the buses, because that is Skånetrafiken, which is a company owned by the region, who has responsibility for the public transportation, who has sort of put this in this company, and they put out tenders for the transport. And no one is really, and if we would have this in Lund for the buses, and they could be used for the taxis, it's who should do the investments, who's getting the benefit, and where are the decisions made, and who wants to take it up front. So that is, of course, a very challenging question for us. And that's why we are looking for cities or other stakeholders that has this vision, that they can see the benefits, that you have multiple users and dare to take this. It's a bit like building a tram, but for everyone. You could be your own tram.
Yeah. So the decision makers are one challenge that you're facing.
Because it's so many levels, and the decisions for one application but might benefit another stakeholder.
Of course.
So,
yeah. So what are the other challenges?
Well, it's I would say it's behavior and our normal fear of something new. How does this work in snow? How can you get the car and the vehicle side? Of course, it's important to be able to get them on board. So I would say that today the pain is of charging, or so it's starting to get there, but it will increase when you have a higher penetration of EVs on a general level, and then everyone will realize you need to do something, and then we will be there.
Exactly. So what you mentioned now, it's interesting about the weather. Like, what if the snow covers the electrical rails?
So of course, the on top mounted version, you would need a special snow plow to take away the snow, and we have developed technology for that. But the submerged version, you will be able to have a snow plow like anyone else, and then we have heating that you can just take away the top layer. So it's
nice.
Yeah.
Did you talk to other cities, like urban planners and so on?
I mean, we would love to reach out, of course, and we have just started. We have our projects now, and we are doing also some stationary charging, because we can use the same technology when you stand still. So that has been sort of our focus on the short term. As a startup, we need to, plan both short and long term to get. So of course we would be really interesting to get in touch with cities who can see this vision and see how we can support in enabling a much quicker adoption of electrification for several users.
Do you find it difficult that people understand your solution and idea, and like I'm talking now about the mindset.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard that, or do you see that people find it super hard to switch from what they do now to your solution?
No, I think that, I mean, on a conceptual level, everyone gets it and thinks it's super cool and easy and see the benefits. I mean, you do that quite intuitively, but then getting it to convert that conceptual idea into real projects, yes, that is challenging.
Yeah.
But we're part of a Horizon application now in a city in the Netherlands, where they would use our solution to charge a autonomous pod that will be for passengers in a campus area that will like go non-stop. So obviously, if you want to have autonomous vehicles or applications, you don't want to have a person putting in a cord, or you don't want to have any time extra to stand still. You want to deploy, as I said, deploy it. So I think that, I mean, I would say that time is in our favor, that you will see the need and benefits, and then it will happen.
Yeah. And the road that you built in Lund,
Yep.
Does it function now? Is it open for public, or how is it?
So we make tests every month. So it's a demonstration. So but they can always contact us to get the demonstration. I mean, unfortunately, COVID has made it difficult to have visitors, but hopefully during the spring now, when things open up again a bit, are able to demonstrate it. But it's out there. Everyone can go and have a look at it, but it might be difficult to see someone charging on it. That only happens every now and then.
Yeah. So talking about the system, okay, for the municipalities and other like more the decision makers, it's a kind of headache when they look at your solution and they need to decide. How is it for the citizen? Like, what is it for them? Is it easy just to adapt? Do they need to do something or no?
No, I mean, today, of course, our rail is placed on a bus, in the bus lane, and then they are not allowed to drive there, even if people do it. I've done it. So I think that, I mean, I would say that the majority are very positive. Of course, there was always people who have questions and fears and thoughts. So I wouldn't say 100% positive. I think people, especially if you're driving a motorcycle, you would have some issues. But the final version that will be on streets, that will have the same friction as normal asphalt, and that's really important. So of course we need to take so many different passenger groups into consideration, and we need to apply to all the rules that are out there. So
yeah, very interesting. And Karin, tell me, like, what is going to be the next step? Like, what are you going to do now?
So I mean, we are participating in more tenders for electrical roads. We are trying to find a good market fit for fleet owners who want to make it easier for them to turn into electrification. So we have some installments this spring. Actually have some colleagues who are in Trondheim this week to make our first foreign installation outside Sweden.
Wow!
So that's
congratulations.
And then hopefully we'll get another exciting project in H22 together with Street Move. So really show that we can use streets in a better way.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you think? What is like a smart street? What do you think? How do you think that we can use the streets in a better way?
But I mean, of course, I would like to see less vehicles in a city. So having a combination of perhaps car sharing or utilizing the same vehicles better, instead of everyone sitting in their own car. But then again, I love driving my own car, so I know how hard it is. It's convenience. So we needed to make it easier than just sitting in your own car. So I think that part of driving behavioral change, partly driving technology change, and if you can get them to work together, I think we can use the road smarter.
Yeah, and do you see this idea is more welcomed in Sweden because of like people here like to think more about the climate and take change
But I
their
think that, I
lifestyle, or
mean, to some
what
extent,
do
I
you
think that.
think?
No, I think it's a general trend. And if you think in Paris, they have the 15 minutes walking cities, and you have in Barcelona, you also have street moves, and I think that it's a trend that, especially I would say perhaps in Europe, where we have had cities that are built before the vehicle or the cars, and then we have introduced the cars, and it doesn't really belong there. It makes it harder to and uglier in the street to some extent, but it's also more convenient. So how can we adopt and use, I mean, the reality we live today, but also taking into consideration the history and the development of our cities. So I don't think it's a Swedish thing. I think it might be more a European thing, but I also think that in most cities where you have, when you've had a high penetration of EVs, and you can see, or penetration of vehicles, and you can see what that means for air quality and way of life and health. It's we need to do something.
Do you see this happening, like this system is implemented like in 50 years, like from now in 50 years?
Yes, totally.
Do you see it like a reality?
Yes, I do.
You do that?
Yes.
Cool. So you believe in it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, if a Swedish company like Spotify could really rock the whole record and CD production way, I mean, everywhere you went on a gas station, you could see CD records, or I mean, it's, and now you don't. In a matter of 10, 15 years. So it's possible.
Interesting to follow the journey.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Again, borderline crazy and genius. That's how we roll.
Yeah, Karin, I'm very, very happy to talk with you. And this is something new for me as well, like as an urban planner. So I'm happy you inspired me a lot, and also the listener. So thank you for giving your time to record this episode.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And just reach out if you have any more questions.
Yeah, I have more questions because now we are in the final section of this episode. It's gonna be more personal, like about you, Karin.
Yeah.
So let's start with these questions.
Yeah.
What makes you sad in your city, from urban planning and design and architecture point of view?
I think when you don't really take in consideration the history of a city and just think of where we are now and looking forward, I think that the city has a history, and taking that very much in consideration is something, and not falling for trends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I think maybe a listener will question like, but now you're introducing something new to our cities, and how are we going to deal with this in our old cities?
Yeah.
What is your answer to that?
But I mean, you won't basically see it. that's the beauty of our solution, is that it will work, but you won't see it. It will not make the city uglier. It's really
underground, underneath.
It will be the same surface level. You won't really. So if you think of if you have like trolley buses, they have all these lines, and you can just remove them, and they can charge with our system instead, and you won't really know. So we really, I would say, making the cities more beautiful.
Okay, there's a point there. I see the point there. And what makes you proud of your city?
I mean, here in Lund, or it's
you can choose Lund, or you can talk in general. Like
in general, but I would say that, like for in Helsingborg, where you have H22, and they really are interested in finding new solutions and have the courage to, start in small scale to see what it works and get feedback from the people living there. That's also a good start to not think really big first, but I think all innovation and development should start in steps.
Yeah. And what should urban planners stop doing when they planning cities?
I think that you always need to think, what is practical, what is beautiful, and what is a new solution, and how can we get acceptance from that. And also, I think that's really important to, but I think that in Sweden, sometimes we think too practically, and we need to also address the beauty.
If like me as a planner and many other planners are listening to your episode, so how can we contribute to your solution? Is there something that we can help with in order to change behavior and introduce this new infrastructure?
And I think that having open dialogue and learn more together and see how can this impact and get new angles. I think that's always. I was actually we were talking to some interesting party, and they just realized, but we work a lot with disabled people, and then charging could be a hassle for them, and your solution could really facilitate that. We haven't never thought of that. So sometimes you stumble across, because it's difficult to have many perspectives in mind at all times. That's why we need to learn, and we need to interact with sometimes with people that we didn't expect that we needed to interact.
Yeah, of course. And that's why I'm so happy that you're doing the podcast today, because we need to have these kind of conversations in order to create a better future together. Yeah. And Karin, if you will be the mayor of all cities on this planet, and you're allowed to create one rule or introduce one object or one thing to the cities, what will you introduce or add?
I would actually say that we should walk more.
Okay.
That would be
So
the word.
more walking paths.
Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. So I have 3 questions left.
Yeah.
And the first one is, if you will not be a Karin, like this human in this body and so on, and you can choose to be anything else, what will you choose? You can choose anything, like I don't know, animal, tree, plant,
I was actually
object.
quite often, especially this kind of year, I would prefer to be my cat. That can just.
Your cat.
Yes, they look very. They seem to have a quite nice life.
Really? Okay.
Doesn't do much for, of course. Doesn't really drive development of the world. But as in a small universe, it seems very, very convenient to be a cat, a domestic cat that has a home, I would say.
Interesting. Well, Karin, how would you like to summarize this conversation, your thoughts, reflection, and 3 takeaway messages to all our listeners?
Well, I think that I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and also get your perspective on certain parts, because, as we said, getting inspiration and input and insights are so valuable, because it's easy to get stuck in your label, and then you hang out with. When I used to work as a lawyer, I just hang out with lawyers, not always, but you get your crew around you, and you share the same issues and challenges, and that forms you. So this cross-functional or cross whatever you call it, it's really important to get inputs. And I would just from my personal perspective, that I want everyone who listens about electrical roads, what they can take away with them is really that electrical roads can save space. We are utilizing the same space that are already there. We take advantage of time. You don't have to allocate specific time to charge. And also I would say it increases efficiency. You can use energy more evenly during the day, and we can decrease the need of batteries and hopefully the amount of vehicles, and all that together will have a huge environmental impact. And that's the reason why we exist.
Yeah. And before the last question, I want you to tell us more about, because you change career and you step out of your comfort zone. How was the experience? Are you happy now? What is your advice to people that like not really happy with what they do and thinking about to follow their passion or something they love to do? What is your advice to them?
I would say it requires some efforts. If you because I realized like I don't want to do this anymore. So I actively looked up people, asked for lunches or coffees. I made interviews. I was actively searching. I didn't know what I was searching for. For me, it was I wanted to work with people I really liked and enjoyed and gave me energy. And I wanted also, it became clear for me when I did like a pros and cons list that I wanted to work with something that contributed to a better future. Because I love working. I think my kids really know that, and they complain. And if I'm taking so much time away from them, I want to do something that could make an impact. I guess that's a bit egoistic as well, but it really motivates me when I find it's hard to go to work some days, but most of the days I'm just really happy. I find myself, it's so rewarding to be part of this team, and I guess you need to have some characteristics, like, you know, when you go to amusements park, they have this feature with whack-a-mole, and you whack a mole and then it comes up somewhere else, and you need to have that as an entrepreneur, because you will get whacked down by different stakeholders, or you know, it will you think you have a solution or you have an agreement and you don't, and you will get a lot of whacking. Then you just need to have the energy to come up from a different hole and try again.
Yeah. You were not afraid that you will fail hard and the company will not work, and then you just change career and then you need to go back?
That might happen, but hopefully I've learned something on the way.
Interesting. Well, and finally, the last question, but this time you will ask this question to me and to the listeners. So what is your question to us?
So in 2030, what do you think cities will look like?
Is there a specific aspect you're thinking about, like roads, green spaces?
Yeah, I'm thinking thinking perhaps more from a sustainability perspective and a climate perspective. So we're talking about how can we reach the Paris Agreement by 2030, decreasing, and what is the role of cities in that context?
Interesting. Karin, thank you so much really for this episode. I'm happy to talk to you.
Great. Looking forward to get the discussion and response to that last question then.
Yes. Hopefully see you in Helsingborg.
Absolutely, will do.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You learned something new and also got inspired by the guest. Don't forget to share the episode on your social media and recommend it to people you think they are really interested in this topic. Thank you so much again for giving your valuable time to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.